Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of hell. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at ubnradio.com.
It's time for the Bonnie Sher Show, a whirlwind of wit, wisdom, celebrity, and the boomer life. With a little bit of this and a lot of that and so much more you don't want to miss, here's Bonnie.
Oh, I love that music. Well, hello there, and thank you, old friends and new, for dropping by. I'm Bonnie Sher, and I'm here to lead you through the worlds of celebrity, through the type 1 diabetes nation, as well as the baby boomers. So, I do appreciate you all checking in with us today like every week. Please feel free to call in with your comments or your questions. My question is why I keep slamming into the microphone. Okay, so the call-in number here is area code 323-843-2826. Or you can tweet the hashtag BShareRadio on Twitter. Now, before we get this show on the road, I'd like to acknowledge as great Wayne Cobham for composing my super duper hero theme song. Thanks, Wayne. And also I want to take a second to mention Corey Bone of Crown and Anchor Jewelry, who provides me with the jewelry that I wear on this show in exchange for this promotional message. You can find Corey on Etsy. Check him out. He's got some wonderful things. Now, when we come back, I'll take a little break. And when we come back, we will be chatting with New York psychotherapist Joseph Klinkov. See you in a minute.
Your life story is more than the things you do. It's a story built on the moments you make today and the impact you have on others. How big is your story going to be? Live your legend.
And we're back. I have on the line with me today a psychologist. Well, he's more than a psychologist, but we'll start with that. And his name is Joseph Klinkov. Hello there, Joe.
Hi there, Bonnie. Hi.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for taking your time to join me today. I know what a busy fella you tend to be, and I want you to know how much I appreciate this.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Well, thank you. Let's start off. You've been in practice for about 40 years, as I can count.
Yes. Time flies,
doesn't
when
it?
you're having fun.
Well, hey, that's at least you should be having is fun, and we'll talk about that
That's
off
for
the air.
sure.
Yeah, and I'll call in and tell you I'm really somebody else. Yeah. And then you'll tell me how much fun you really have. Well, I have this one client that,
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit? Well, actually, I have a question for you. There has been spoken of, and from my memory, this is a method which you employ. Can we talk a little bit about parts therapy?
Yes, yes, we certainly can. A while back, and it's quite a while back, I got wind of a new model of looking at personality, at people, and became acquainted with the idea with model of parts, which really basically says, to make it understandable, that we all have different parts that come into play at different times, and we can see it. It's really, you can see it in everyday language when people say, part of me wants this, part of me wants that.
Right,
So they're just really describing two parts, at least two parts. They're sort of back and forth in conflict as to what they should do, and then they make a decision. And that's an extremely useful model. And some of the great uses of parts is that we all tend to have young parts, and some of those young parts still carry the scars of trauma in them, which then assert themselves in different situations, and they certainly play a big part in diabetes.
Well, you jumped right to my next question. Look how you did that. That's why you're so clever. Well, I know personally that you do treat and have worked with many type 1 diabetics in your career.
Yes, yes. The way that came about, it's someone you know that's been on your show, Dr. Andy Drexler. He was in New York at one time. He went over to West Coast from New York, and I got to know him, I think, 20 years ago, etc. And he started referring people to me with diabetes who had different issues, different problems. And I spent some time with him learning about the diabetes, learning about the care, the self-care, the intense self-care that a diabetic needs to engage in to manage the disease, which is probably, in terms of amount of self-care, I don't know of any other illness that compares to it. And that has its own ramifications. So yes, I've worked with quite a few diabetics.
My next question, I mean, optimally, because as you've mentioned, it is a lifetime of self-management,
yes,
and self-care. Yes, I go to my endo, I go see Andy, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm making the decisions.
Yes.
And, I can remember back, I mean, I'm 50 years into this now, but I can remember in the early days for me, I was diagnosed at 15, so maybe around the time I was 17, it really, and I was living out here at the time, it became very evident that I needed some assistance. And, sometimes I wonder what came first, the depression or the diabetes, because I see them coming hand in hand, for me at least. Not in terms of sadness, because I've learned that sad is a whole different category. I'm wondering that with the T1s that you have dealt with, is it really, I mean, if they come to you like through an Andy or somebody else who knows that you have the knowledge to work with these patients, is that always the qualifying thing? Or
Is it always what, Bonnie?
is it almost like the qualifier that the depression comes along with diabetes, or is that
Well,
really according to your
this
parts?
is a little complex because the literature that I've seen around diabetes and psychological effects really mostly talks about the psychological effects of diabetes, which is it gets people into depression because they got this illness, etc., etc. However, there is a lot of anecdotal evidence, which I have from my own practice and through discussions with colleagues are seeing, and have been seeing also diabetics in their general practice, is that so many, actually, almost most of my patients have had significant trauma as children, which leads us to suspect that severe trauma during childhood years really triggers diabetes. It may be triggers it in people who are susceptible. Well, we don't know. And we don't know because to run that kind of study is very difficult. And of course, people that are in therapy with me and my colleagues are also, it's a self-selected population. But it's very clear that those are very large numbers where the depression or the trauma precedes the diabetes.
That's very interesting. I can see how that could be the case. Well, Joe, I'm going to ask you to hold it right there for a second. We're going to take a little break, and I want to hear more about this when we return. So hold on. I'll be back in a minute.
Yes.
Since when did experience become something to hide? I say we own it. Lose all that negativity. Just let it go. It's just bad energy. Oh, and lose those terrible black balloons they give you on your 50th. What's up with that?
Hey, we hear you. That's why our members love AARP the magazine. It celebrates you with fun and provocative content, from lifestyle and entertainment to in-depth reporting. And it's just one of the great benefits of membership.
If you don't think this is right for me when you think AARP, then you don't know AARP. Get to know us at aarp.org/possibilities.
To be at peace with myself is the most prominent thing, and I am at peace with myself. I didn't build this deck, I'm just playing the game. That's all. That's it. Meals on Wheels has given me a mode of freedom that I wouldn't have otherwise. And making sure that I get the nutrition that I need, and it's a balanced meal. My name is Maurice McGriff. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
You are tuned to the Bonnie Sher Show, Boomer Life, and we have the pleasure of speaking with Joseph Klinkov. So join the conversation. You can call into us at 323-843-2826, or you can tweet the hashtag #BeShareRadio. So let's pick up where we left off before, Joe. Do you think that we've talked about the effect of the notification of diagnosis? That would be difficult, I think, at whatever age one is.
Yes.
I know that in terms of parts therapy, which you have taught me very well, and I thank you. There is a part of me that gets very angry. There's a part of me that feels uncared for. Mm-hmm. There are all of these different parts that get together. But I don't think it's just diabetics, especially now in this point of time. It's a very, when you don't really know which foot you can stand on and believe what you're hearing, it's tough for all of your parts because it just doesn't make any sense. And I think our current administration is making this even more difficult.
Yes, indeed. I mean, that's sort of colored the whole picture, the current times, the administration, and everything else, where people are very reacting to it very strongly.
Well, and also, I mean, just the fact of the matter that they're, in the meantime, they haven't really changed anything about health care. They're just talking about it, and I see it as a threat. And they're just threatening to do these things. They haven't really done anything.
Well, they're doing their best to do it, to carry out their threat.
Well, luckily, somebody's parts are in good working order because they're not letting it pass.
Right. And with different people, there are different parts operating to stop it so far.
It's just a troubling time for me, and I'm sure for lots of other people.
Yes.
too.
An awful lot of people.
Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know that depression has, I think, at least personally speaking, if I am feeling depressed or if I'm in a depressed state of mind for a particular period of time, I find that I can be depressed over more than one thing.
Totally.
And then I have to look at different parts.
A person's life is never one-dimensional.
Well, I don't know, Joe. I'm glad that you're able to figure this out because I have a really rough time and I take things very personally. And I take what's happening now very personally. It's tough enough.
Well,
when you're
an awful lot of people are taking it very personally because it's very difficult not to take it personally. It touches everyone. It touches everyone.
It does.
What is going on with the potential or the threat of it, it's touching everyone.
I tried an experiment the other night. I am not a Fox News follower, nor have I ever been. But the other night I decided I just wanted to see what they were saying about all of this. I don't know. I mean, it's all very manipulative, I find. And that's another point with me. I hate being manipulated.
Well, yes.
I
don't know anyone that does.
I think some people might rely on
when
that.
they realize they are being manipulated.
Oh, well. Anybody could figure that out. I mean, read the paper. I don't know. Actually, I have misplaced now the list of things that I was going to ask you, and actually they came from another patient of yours, client of yours, who we both know also, but I think I can mention her name because she said, "Send love to Dr. K," and that is our Lisa Hepner.
Yes, indeed.
I was just speaking to somebody. Isn't she marvelous? I was just speaking to another T1, and I think we are an interesting lot. I think that for the most part, resilience is a top draw in this business, is being able to stay resilient. And personally, I think that I have been a patient of yours for this length of time because you're able to provide that. And
but I can't provide resilience.
Well,
people come to me they're either resilient, and you certainly are an example. If you weren't as resilient as you are, I don't know where you would be at this point.
Well, luckily, I don't have to worry about that because I get to Skype with you.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
Listen, you keep me standing, Joe. You keep me standing. And I guess what I'm really getting to is to any of my listeners, viewers who are type 1s, this is not something to run away from. Having therapy and working through, I mean, there's only so much we can do, but it's
well,
so much
let
better.
me address that for a minute, Bonnie, which is that, and again, I'm going to my own practice and what I've learned from my colleagues who worked with diabetics, is that people very often who come in with difficulty in self-management or are, quote, poor at self-management, that is so connected with their depression, which is not necessarily always the result of diabetes, but preceded diabetes, and they come in with attitudes of not being actually worthwhile to take care of themselves. And this would be something you really confronted with, and you need to start working with.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Joe. And thank you from everybody here. Joe, I know that you don't tweet and Twitter and things of that ilk.
I'm a dinosaur. I don't do those things.
That's okay. I mean, I know a couple other people who should perhaps never tweet again.
Right. We both do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes. But if people want to support you and follow you, you do keep a Facebook presence, do you not?
Yes, I do.
And you do practice in Manhattan?
Yes, on the east side of Manhattan. That's correct.
Have you always been in the same office? I know you have.
No, actually, I've always been 2 blocks away, actually.
You
always
like the
on
neighborhood?
The east side
That's because
on the east side in the 80s.
Well, who, huh?
We'd 85th Street,
you.
to be more precise.
Oh, it's such a nice street. Anyway, Joe, thank you again for taking the time to chat with me
Oh,
today.
sure. It's
and
a
to
pleasure.
bring some more
Take care.
information. And you too. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Before we go to break, I'd like to take this opportunity to I would like to wear my glasses. I usually know this better. The important work, and this is important, the important work of the DRI, and encourage you to support them in their efforts. You can visit them online at diabetesresearch.org. And there wasn't anything funny about that. Our song of the day, Being Alive, sung by Miss Julie Budd, is up next. And we'll get to that right after this next break.
Type 1 diabetes can be living in anyone.
Type 1 diabetes is when your pancreas doesn't produce insulin. It's not caused by your diet. It's not caused by anything you did.
Type 1 diabetes can be very serious.
Blindness, amputation.
Learn more about type 1 diabetes.
Help support JDRF finding a cure.
T1D looks like my brother.
T1D looks like a friend.
Type 1 diabetes looks like me.
Somebody hold me too close. Somebody hurt me too deep. Somebody sit in my chair and ruin my sleep and make me aware of being alive. Being alive. Somebody need me too much. Somebody know me too well. Somebody pull me up short and put me through hell and give me support for being alive. make me alive, make me alive, make me confused, mock me with praise, let me be used, vary my days, but alone is alone, not alone. Somebody crowd me with love, somebody force me to care, somebody make me come through. I'll always be there, as frightened as you, to help us survive. Being alive, being alive, being alive. Somebody make me come through. I'll always be there, as frightened as you, to help us survive. Being alive, being alive, being
And welcome back to the Bonnie Sher Show, Boomer Life. With me today is my T1 co-host, Roger Sparks. Many of you who have seen my show in the past might remember Roger as being whom I have deemed my favorite million islet cell man. Yes, it's true. Hello, Roger.
Well, hello, Bonnie. How are you? I love that tag. I love that tag.
Hey, we all have to be something. But that's a pretty exciting thing to be. I know well that you have been living with type 1 diabetes. And for those who don't know the story, can you refresh their memories or refresh the other memories and tell the rest? Because they would, yes, please.
Yeah, I've been a type 1 diabetic for 35 years, long time. And about 2 years ago, my diabetes had developed into quite a brittle state. I was having severe problems, primarily with hypoglycemia. And I contacted the City of Hope and got involved in a clinical trial.
How did you make that decision? Did you already know about the City of Hope, or were you just looking?
I had followed the Edmonton protocol, which is what the City of Hope is using. They're using a variation of the Edmonton protocol. I'd followed it for several years, and I was interested in it. My diabetes had started to take over my life more and more. I was concerned that one of my hypoglycemia episodes was going to be fatal. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get involved with something that I thought had the potential to contribute to a cure. And I did a lot of research. I went first to Edmonton and talked to them. I then found the City of Hope, which was local to me in Southern California. I'm from Orange County. And the City of Hope had the person who was the chair of endocrinology there. His name was Dr. Candile, had done a video talking about what his hopes were for his study. And the hopes were, he said, we're going to find a cure in my lifetime. And I became convinced that it was a trial that I wanted to get involved in. So I contacted them. I started the process. It took about 6 months to get through the entire application process. I was accepted, put on a waiting list for a pancreas because we still are dealing with donor pancreas that they extract the islets from and insert into me. I got put on the waiting list in early December, about December 15th of 2015, and I got called on New Year's Eve, 2015, so I had my transplant on New Year's Day of 2016. That was my first transplant. I was very lucky. All of the drugs that they give you, all of the things that they do to you to make your transplant more likely to be successful, I had a very good reaction to. I never had a drug reaction. And after my first transplant, my insulin requirements were reduced from what had been about 55 units a day prior to the transplant, ended up down to about 15 units a day. So it was a pretty dramatic advantage. Over the course of the next few months, it became clear I was not going to become insulin free. But I had the choice of a second transplant to attempt to give me more islets. And
so that required a second pancreas to be found that would
correct.
Be a match. So this isn't a matter of just one.
No. It emphasizes the importance of donors to clinical trials. This clinical trial doesn't go any place without donor pancreases, which means people who are contributing their organs after their deaths. And I was lucky enough to have gotten the pancreas from two people who died prematurely, who now live on inside me. Not a day that goes by that I don't think of those two people. I had my second transplant on June 16th of last year, 2016. And from about halfway through the procedure for my second transplant, I've required no insulin. So I am...
And you're not having, because you're not taking any parenteral insulin, you can't possibly fall into that kind of a low.
No, I can't. I've had since my first transplant, I've not had one low blood sugar. I've not had one hypoglycemic episode.
But you did say something interesting to me when you said that although you are clinically, not requiring this parenteral insulin, that you still eat and maintain the very same diet.
I do.
You see, I think that's a guy thing. I really do. I don't think women are nearly as good.
Well, I'm not sure it's a guy thing, but in my case, you go 35 years with a particularly... I had a really good diet. I always took care of myself very well. I ate very healthily. I exercised a lot. I played tennis all the time. And I didn't change
Like
anything.
I said, it's a guy thing. I don't do any of that. I want to tell you, I don't none.
I don't do anything differently today than I did
That's
before.
what I find remarkable.
Except once in a while, I have an ice cream cone. And once in a
while?
Right.
I wish I could say once in a while.
So I've been very lucky. I've been extremely lucky in that I've had no side effects. I've been very lucky in that.
You mean side effects from the drugs?
From the drugs. From one of the things that happens when you have any cells that come from another body is you have to take immunosuppressant drugs for the rest of your life. And a lot of people are afraid of that. A lot of people think that's...
Do you think that maybe it's the cost of it too? I mean, had you not been a clinic patient, my understanding that this procedure is $20,000.
Right.
Which is taken care of for you because you are a part of the program.
Well, when you say $20,000, what do you mean?
For the surgery.
No, it's a lot more.
A lot more. Well, I must have gone to the people who didn't know.
It was
Okay, but the point is now that you are still covered for your drugs,
right,
under the study itself. How long will that remain, and what kind of numbers are you looking at after you have to take it over? And does insurance cover that?
I am covered. All of my drugs are covered until about a week from now, which is...
It's a good thing I had you on this week, huh?
Yeah, so I'm in a good mood today.
Oh, that's a good thing.
After that, after 1 year from the time of your last transplant,
right,
you are responsible for the drugs yourself. And the cost is, we're in America, so it's very hard to say exactly what the cost of the drugs are.
Correct.
The gross cost of the drugs are probably $20,000 to $25,000 a year. Insurance does cover them. I am a Medicare patient. So Medicare will cover them like it would cover other drugs that I need. But of course, we got the famous donut hole that you get to, which now that you're taking these expensive drugs, you'll get to much quicker. So my total outlay is probably going to be in the $7,000 to $10,000 a year range for the drugs that I'm going to need to continue.
I see. So what the question becomes is that not, or could that be, or would that be a deciding factor for a patient who really wanted to attempt it but didn't have the scratch to keep it up?
Sure.
So that could be.
It's something you have to consider.
And they tell you all of this up front.
All of it up front. As a matter of fact, a financial person from the City of Hope spent several hours with me going over this, making sure that I understood this. However, like everyone in America who is required to use drugs for a chronic condition, which I certainly have, I'm investigating alternate sources. And what that means is, like we all do, we look for other ways to get access to drugs, whether it be from Canada or whether it be from Mexico or whether it be from someplace else. Now, I don't know how that's going to turn out for me. I am not a wealthy person. I don't have a lot of money. That cost is significant to me.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be an every year cost for the rest of my life. However, I no longer require insulin. We all know how expensive insulin is. We're talking $300 a vial for insulin right at the moment. And continuing to go up every year as we get, since we're the target audience for pharmaceutical companies manufacturing insulin. So we know that's expensive. We know there are people in America that can't get insulin right now because they don't have the money to be able to do it, so they ration their insulin or they find other ways to do it. And hopefully we'll have some solution for this in the next few years. They're trying to close the donut hole in Medicare, and hopefully it'll get better. God knows I hope it'll get better, because if it doesn't, I'm going to be in trouble.
You're not going to be in trouble because we'll go fund you.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to remind you of that.
Well, remind is the pivotal word,
yeah, okay.
Roger. That would be the pivotal word. Before we say goodbye for now, I know that you keep up a blog and that you are on the Big Bad Book and Facebook and Twitter. How can people follow you? Give us your info, please.
The easiest way to do it is just Google Roger Eilets, ISLETS, and that will get you to the blog.
Excellent.
And it has all of my Twitter contact information, Facebook contact information.
Perfect. I think it's phenomenal that you've chosen to put yourself in the line of fire for this. And it doesn't come as any big surprise that my friend is doing so very well.
Thank you,
It
Bonnie.
makes my heart sing. And let me ask you, there's one thing I was wondering. Is there any way, do they have a test, and by they I'm talking City of Hope, to come to some kind of number of how many active cells you still have at this point?
No, it's, believe it or not, they have a clinical trial going on for a methodology to determine that. So they have no way.
They must have known I thought it would be a good idea.
They have no way. I got more than 1 million islets in total.
Between the two, right.
Between the two transplants. But we have no idea how many are left.
And do they always stay with, now in your case, they went in through the portal vein and delivered directly into your liver. Is there any terms where the liver can become affected by the introduction of the stem cells?
Anytime you put a foreign body into an organ in your body, you put a foreign substance into an organ in your body, there's potential for complications. However, the liver is a very, very robust and healthy organ.
Well, from what I understand is that they were looking for a place that would continue and have a continuing source of blood flow.
That's correct.
All right, so that's the answer to that. Well, Roger, thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
I mean, thank you.
Well, push the idea of donors, push the idea of diabetics getting involved in clinical trials. It's how we get to a cure, and that's what we're all looking to have happen.
That's for sure. Well, from your mouth to God's ears, as they say. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for the invitation, Bonnie.
You know, if any of my fellow T1s would like to occupy this seat to my left and be a T1 co-host, it's really so simple. All you have to do is write to me. It's Bonnie at BonnieSher.com. We'll find a date, and it really is just that easy, so keep that in mind, please. Next up will be Boomer News and views from my soapbox, you know, the ones that I think are to be applauded and the ones that I think, well, should just be ashamed of themselves. I'm back in 60 seconds.
I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm a social worker. When I found out that I had hepatitis C, I was a single mother, and I was absolutely terrified.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, estimates there are close to 3 million baby boomers infected with hepatitis C. Because there can be no symptoms for decades, most don't even know it. But if detected in time, Hep C can be cured, and the treatment is simple.
Today I feel great. I'm a healthy 65-year-old. I bike to work, I go to the gym, and I've cleared the virus.
The CDC is urging everybody born between 1945 and 1965 to get tested. It's an easy one-time blood test that may be covered by insurance.
I got a disease that could have killed me, but I saved my own life by getting tested.
Don't wait. Ask your doctor about getting tested for Hep C, because knowing is everything.
Okay, today's Boomer News comes to us from the Wall Street Journal, and it is entitled The Economic Impact When Baby Boomers Retire.
The decision to retire is one of the most important personal financial decisions anyone can make. Well, it turns out that it also has a profound macroeconomic impact that we are only now beginning to appreciate. Economists have known for a long time that as the U.S. population ages, it'll tend to slow down economic growth just because we'll have a smaller workforce as a result. But there's new evidence that suggests there's another impact on the economy that's potentially even more important. Because older workers tend to be the most knowledgeable and the most experienced, when they retire, that hurts the productivity of everybody left behind. And that drags on the economy through productivity growth. These findings come from a new economic research paper that just came out in the last week. The economists looked at all 50 states, they looked at the ones that aged faster, and they found that in those states, economic growth slowed more. About a third of the slowdown was because their workforce wasn't growing as quickly, but the rest of it was because the remaining workers just weren't as productive. You know, this kind of makes sense. Older workers aren't just the ones who are most experienced and capable, they also tend to make the people around them more capable and more confident and knowledgeable about how to do their jobs. If you look around the country right now, there are employers from coast to coast grappling with the fact that some of their most experienced employees are now coming up on retirement, and they're very worried about how to replace them. There's a lot of sort of tribal knowledge that you acquire on the job that you cannot simply teach in college. The country as a whole needs to come to grips with this, because if it doesn't, it's facing a double whammy from the aging of the population. This, I think, adds an extra impetus to a lot of the discussion now that we should do more to extend retirement ages, both in private pensions and in Social Security.
Now, we're at that point of the show where I do give some views from my soapbox. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to friend of the Bonnie Sher Show and friend, Sherry Payne. Sherry. Sherry's a wonderful singer and now has written a musical which will be premiering this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, as a matter of fact, at that will be performing in North Hollywood, California. The name of this musical is The Dream Seekers. I invite all of you to come and see Sherry's work. She's just a phenomenal singer, and as a writer, she excels as well. So don't forget about that, and you might even see me there. That's exciting, right? And then my shout down. Well, my question of the day is, how low can you go? I reported last week on the event occurring on the train in Portland where 3 gentlemen jumped in to rescue 2 young women. So what happened was they get killed. That wasn't bad enough. Now, Ricky Best, one of the victims, who was stabbed to death last Friday, when he was, as I said, trying to calm a man yelling anti-Muslim slurs at these 2 teenage girls. And Best and the 2 other gentlemen were hailed as heroes. Now, what happened is that while Mr. Best was lying helpless from the stabbing, somebody apparently made off with his backpack and his wedding ring. Really? Really? Is that what it's come to? I just can't even imagine that. But before we say goodbye for the week, I would like to thank our guests today. That would be Joe Klinkov, psychotherapist from New York, and of course, the million islet cell man, Roger Sparks. Thank both of you tremendously for coming on and being a part of my show. So that is my show for today, and I hope that you'll return next week for another 50 minutes of celebrity chat, life of the great boomer generation, and of course, life within the type 1 diabetes community. In the meantime, please visit BonnieSher.com, and you can follow the #1 Bonnie Sher on Twitter, and like the Bonnie Sings Lena fan page on Facebook. Many of you are aware of the very special relationship that I had with Sammy Davis Jr. He was my mentor and he was my friend. And I take this moment in every show to say thank you, Mr. D. And if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would have been here. So let me just end the show Carol Burnett style with sort of a nod and a wink to you, Mr. D. See you next week.